listen to this, man. He got some good news for you. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house.
Whoa.
The doctor is in the house.
The doctor is in the house. Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Ron, host of Dr. Ron, Unfiltered, Uncensored, here today with episode 643. Isn't that incredible? It's amazing. And I am so happy and humbled by your support of this podcast. And those of you that are also signing on to my Substack page, docronradio.substack.com. It's really keeps me going and it is keeping me motivated to write articles that have been bothering me for a lot of years, especially now the way medicine is taking a turn, and in my opinion, not for the best. So welcome, and today we're going to be talking about something called IPPOTA, IPPOTA. You won't remember this, but it stands for Inverted Pyramidal Proliferation of Theoretical Assumptions. And this really has a lot to do about science building on assumptions. So let me ask a question. What if much of what we call settled science, we heard that during the COVID time, settled science, what have we heard? What if this statement is not fraudulent, but is structurally unstable, not because researchers are evil, not because data is fabricated. And sorry to say, I did talk to you a few weeks ago about the Alzheimer's. That was deception into 2006 when they falsely propelled the amyloid hypothesis. And you can go back and look at that, but not always fraudulent. But suppose all of this settled science is not applicable because the entire fields are built on assumptions that were never properly stress tested. So today we're going to talk about this inverted pyramidal proliferation of theoretical assumptions. It was a term coined by Coco Butterworth in the late 1800s from Montreal. And once you understand this concept, you will never look at medical consensus the same way again. So this term describes a structural pattern in science. You have an hypothesis, and that becomes accepted prematurely. Then you have research that's built on that hypothesis that was accepted. Guidelines are written. Funding flows in that direction. Medical schools teach it as fact. Dissent becomes career-threatening. The original assumption becomes invisible. The pyramid grows taller, but the base never widens. And because there are thousands of citations, people assume the foundation must be solid, but the citations do not equal validation. They equal repetition, and that is the danger. So let's break it down. And let's break down the mechanism, because there's many biases. There's a funding bias. There's a publication bias. There's an institutional inertia, and there's a confirmational bias. If a dominant model drives billions of dollars in research and treatment, who funds the competing theory? If journals favor confirmatory data, what happens to contradictory studies? If guidelines are codified into policy, what happens to physicians who deviate? Now, this is not a conspiracy. It's structural gravity, and gravity pulls toward preservation of the existing model. So over time, correlation becomes causation in the public's mind. It never was proven, but because it has never changed over time, it becomes causation. Risk markers become diseases. Suppression becomes synonymous with treatment. And questioning the base becomes taboo and career threatening. And that is a IPPOTA in motion. Now, someone's asking what risk markers become diseases. Well, the LDL is a marker that has become noted to, if it's high, it may indicate heart disease, but it doesn't always. But once it becomes part of a paradigm, a protocol, then it always does. So what are the warning signs about proliferating a hypothesis that has not been proven? How do you recognize it? Well, watch for emotional reactions to basic questions. Watch for dismissal rather than engagement. Watch for language like, the science is settled. There can be no debate on this anymore. Questioning this problem, questioning this theory is dangerous. But science is never settled, and science does not fear scrutiny. Only fragile structures do. So what do? We ask better questions. We distinguish mechanisms from markers. We separate symptom control for root cause resolution. We understand that consensus can be useful, but it must remain provisional. Science is a process, not a proclamation. IPPOTA reminds us that intellectual humility is not weakness, it is strength. Because the goal is not to defend models, the goal is to protect human health, and that requires the courage to re-examine foundations. So let's have some examples. A common pattern in medicine is the elevation of a biomarker. Now, that's just a marker now, and that is elevated to a disease. The number becomes the target, and lowering the number becomes the treatment. But what's the physiology? What's the deeper physiology driving the number? Is it oxidative stress, inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, metabolic signaling? Those deeper physiological drivers never get addressed. So, number one, we get a marker, and that's associated with the disease. Lowering the marker becomes the goal. The entire treatment models, then there are entire treatment models that are built around that assumption, but the underlying mechanism receives little if no attention. The assumption at the base that changing the marker alone changes long-term physiology is not always rigorously re-examined. Suppose you have a symptom, and the symptom is treated rather than the root cause of the problem. Pain, reflux, insomnia, anxiety, neuropathy. Many conditions are managed primarily by suppressing the symptoms. Now, that's okay in acute care. That is really appropriate. But in chronic disease, suppression often becomes long-term strategy, like pain management, not pain curing. The pyramid forms like this. A symptom is identified. You take a drug, and that suppresses the symptom. That's a Band-Aid. And then it's prescribed long-term because it's suppressing the symptom. But the root cause now is secondary and probably never looked for. So over time, the treatment model becomes self-reinforcing. It is a refillable prescription. It is great for the pharmaceutical companies. But the original physiological drivers, be it nutritional, environmental, sleep distress, stress itself, metabolic health, they remain always unaddressed. And you have another example in polypharmacy. An older adult develops, say, hypertension or difficulty sleeping, joint pain, or mood changes, but each symptom is treated independently. Over time, what do you have? You have multiple medications given to that patient. And sometimes the medications are for side effects of the medications they are already taken. So you have a balance and cognitive decline. And then you know what? if your balance is affected by taking multiple medications, falls increase. Now the fall becomes the new diagnosis. You started out with mild hypertension, difficulty sleeping, and mood changes. You took a lot of medication. You're losing your balance. You're losing some of your cognition, and you fall. But now, that's all forgotten. The fall becomes the new diagnosis. But the base of the pyramid, the cumulative, my new teeth do get stuck, ladies and gentlemen. The cumulative physiological burden and drug interactions may never be revisited. Nobody will take the time to go back and see what drugs were taken for what reason and why so many. That's it in practice. The system treats downstream consequences while the base assumption that each condition must be treated separately goes unquestioned. Wouldn't it be better to have treated the whole system in the first place and look to see if there's something that is coordinating these different symptoms a person may be experiencing, like hypertension, difficulty sleeping, joint pain, and mood changes? But if they end up in a fall, the fall becomes the problem. And medical labels can be useful shorthand, but sometimes the labels replace understanding. A diagnosis can become the endpoint of thinking rather than the beginning of investigation. So IPPOTA appears when the label is treated as an explanation, but the reasons why the label appears in the first place are never pursued, and treatment protocols become standard. A person may have an elevated LDL. They may get treated as pre-heart disease or pre-atherosclerosis, but there is very little investigation into what is causing that elevated lipoprotein. There's very little investigation into inflammation, little investigation into why the elevation is there in the first place. So I am not saying that modern medicine is wrong, not at all. Modern medicine is extraordinary in trauma care, surgery, and emergency medicine and infectious diseases. The problem and my concern is not competence, it is structure. IPPOTA is about how knowledge evolves, not about attacking physicians or scientists. Most clinicians are working within the system that they did not design. But if they deviate from the system, they could lose their job. So we have to get better at identifying root causes, because the disease that you're diagnosed with didn't just start the day before. It's been in your body developing for at least 5 years. And it's at the cellular level, like we've talked about in the docuseries. So how do you watch out for this? Well, ask 3 simple questions. Is the cause of what's wrong with me being treated, or am I just being treated for a marker? Has the underlying assumption ever been reexamined? If you continue to have the same symptoms, have we ever gone back and say, let's take another look at this? And then you have to ask, are alternative explanations being seriously studied? What else could be causing these symptoms? I'm being treated for one thing. It's not really working. What else could it be? What else should we be looking into? So what's a safe way for you to apply this whole idea? Well, focus on fundamentals: sleep, nutrition, movement, stress regulation, metabolic health, environmental exposures. These are things that precede disease. These are upstream factors, but they have a lot of physiological impact. And we have to go back to fundamentals. And strengthening fundamentals rarely conflicts with good medical care, and it often enhances it. So medicine advances not when we defend our assumptions, but when we examine them. Because truth does not fear questions. Only fragile theories do. I know this might have been a little bit of a different type of podcast for you, but as the time goes on, we have to talk more about basic physiology, where it all starts. And I'm not going to be here and defend models, but my goal here is to protect human health. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. And as you know, I don't filter the truth, I amplify it. And this might not be your favorite podcast, but I wanted to let you know in a more didactic way how we have to be careful about medical research today. Most of it is funded by pharmaceutical companies. There's a lot of ghostwriters out there. A lot of physicians are paid just to sign a paper, and some of them have not ever even read it. There are some studies that I have reviewed that have 32 different 32 different authors, and 31 of them have conflicts of interest. It's called COI. So that's why I did this program today. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Ron, host of Dr. Ron Unfiltered, Uncensored. Please visit my Substack page, docronradio.substack.com. And if you go to Podbean, which is docronradio.podbean.com, you will be notified when another podcast is available. And of course, you're on Substack, you'll know when podcasts and or situation papers are written. So with that, let's have Freddie take you home and have a great day.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ron's finished for today. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house.